Okay, let's talk about music. So I have some crucial notes to read. The first part will cover concepts, but I used to have a bunch of descriptions, techniques, and types of algorithm, and was too long. So I'm just going to whip through a few concepts and get to the algorithms themselves. So if you want to follow along, there's that link on the bottom of the page that you can go to the slides and say, what did I just say, or whatever. So what is this about? It's writing MIDI files, high-level object-oriented score construction, and in my mind, it's like Legos, audio Legos. I'm putting stuff together, and good old procedural algorithms. What it's not is song or audio analysis, or that's like taking a song and saying, well, this is in the key of whatever. So it's not about real-time processing. It's about making MIDI files that you can then play later. So it's not about low-level MIDI events like note on, note off, or sysax telling your machines what to do. It's also not about artificial intelligence. That's why I said good old procedural algorithms. It's not magical anything. It's like generative adversarial networks. It's not like that. It's also not about kittens. So I'm sorry. All right, why make it? Because creation in and of itself, you can make algorithm music for your own, satisfaction. You can make fragments for a larger thing, like if you're building a symphony, or for a game, for instance, like little bits and pieces. Satisfy curiosities, like what a different beat patterns sound like, mixed up together. I've definitely asked myself that, what is 5/4 versus 7/8? When do they come together and all that? So for practice and study, instead of just like a metronome, tick tock, you can have a beat, chat boom, chat boom. So there's that. So in algorithmic music, in music in general, there are these fundamental questions, which are like, how do you construct a rhythm? Or how do you generate pleasing harmony? Or how do you make a melody? There's all these things. It's a broad subject, and I've only got 20 minutes. So how do you structure a tune also? That's like, if your tune is always the same, it may not be cool. But we just listened to Brian Eno, and his stuff was all, that's generative. He had tape loops going in and out, and it wasn't, it wasn't about phrase development, which is controversial. It's like a lot of people, like the Primus guitar player, wail and squeal, and it sounds beautiful, but it's not phrases. So anyway, so these are the most of the modules on CPAN that are all in the task bundle that help you build music in lots of different ways. And I use a couple of them, and the blue ones, the linked ones, if you go to this slideshow, they're covered in the slideshow. The other ones are just as cool. They're just not. So anyway, okay, here we go. Some algorithms. So when you first dip your toes into it, this is algorithm music about notes, as opposed to just say a sine wave that just, and you mix it with other sine waves or whatever. It's not about that. It's not low level. This is about MIDI. So in notes. So we've got bass and treble there, but let me start over. This is the basic recipe is set up, sync, and write. So the first two lines are set up. We get ourselves a score, basically. Then we sync them together, sync our bass and treble parts, which I'll show you next. And then we just write it out to the file system. So here's the bass and the treble. And so it's a static thing, right? It's still algorithmic, but it's static notes. We C and E and C and G for the bass. So here's what that sounds like. And that's the command that I use to whip it out into an MP3 because it's easier than playing a MIDI like this. Hey, should we? Okay, I apologize to Beethoven for that. But anyway, so it's algorithmic, but it's not, the most algorithmic. So what we'll do is we'll choose random pitches instead. And this time from a scale, the you can see music scales I've added, and I'm going to grab the MIDI scale, which is a bunch of numbers, like 60 is C, middle C, and 62 is D. Anyway, that's not important. What is important is we're doing the same thing, setting up, syncing, and this time for repeats, and then we're writing the score. So, and here's the bass. You can see this. I'm saying give it this. Get the pentatonic scale because that's the least conflicting scale for bass notes. If you have chromatic versus chromatic, you're going to have a lot of sour notes. So anyway, bass sounds good chromatically. So treble, however, is the major scale. So and we get 2 octaves of the treble, but we play them for the same amount of time. Well, not slightly. You'll hear it different. But you can see almost the second to last line is grabbing the random pitches. So we'll play it here and see what it sounds like. It's danceable. Square wave, yeah. All right, so that's just, come on. All right, that's just, that's juxtaposing just 2 like things from the scale. But you'll notice that the treble went ding, 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 and then there was a note, a bass note, and then ding, 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 ding. So you'll notice on this next example, playlist of chords, named chords, same thing is going on, setup, sync, and write. And this time I've named them chords instead of bass and treble. I've named it chords and treble, but the same thing is going on here. So there's a new module that computes the chord note names, the chord notes rather. So that's here. And so we're giving it a static list of chords to play, which is a pretty jazzy progression. And we'll play it. This is just the chords. It's kind of bittersweet. Okay, so check it out. This is the same thing, same exact thing, but I added the treble notes to play alongside it, and you'll notice that it doesn't always sound as good because the notes, they're all in the key of C, but they don't always. That sounds okay. That sounds okay. I did it this morning, and before I had one that sounded really gross. It was like sour and stuff. And I was going to say, it's because the notes are in the key of C, but the chords are changing, and they don't always match up with exactly what was in the key of C, even though modally they're in the same mode. They're in the same diatonic or whatever. Anyway, I'll go to the next slide. So, okay, here we are. We're already at the 17. I'm talking way too fast. Can you guys understand me? I know that Eugene from Ukraine was like, what are you talking? Slow down. Is he here? No, I don't see him. Okay. Anyway, the groove tool is something I wrote to help me understand mathematical rhythms. And so it generates combinatorial rhythm patterns, but primarily for the sake of this talk, it produces randomized figured bass line. And it uses the technique of phrasing. Instead of just playing a random stream of notes from the key of C, it picks out a particular phrase, and I'll show you the algorithm for that. So here is the groove tool right here. I've already got it loaded up with something ready to go. It's like a complicated interface, which is not the point of the talk. The point is this. See, it stops. It gives a little break, so you're not always continuously inundated with notes. But it plays, I was talking at the same time, so we'll just generate a new one here. Hopefully it works right. Hey, the demo gods were with me. is slightly different. That's 2 phrases. That's the first phrase again. Maybe a third phrase. Maybe the second one again. But anyway, my point is that it plays phrases, which is easier to listen to. And I didn't know that I would have this much time. So I would play, like some juxtaposition of notes on top of the bass, which can be good and bad. If, like I say, if you just draw notes from the key of C, then it's like kind of random and not even musical, really. It's musical. It's just a stream of random notes. So here's the phrase generator for the bass part. It's a module that I wrote that partitions. You give it size, so that's 3 quarter notes, and so instead of 4 quarter notes, we want just only 3, and then it'll rest basically. And I say give it a pool of those particular durations: an eighth note, a quarter note, a dotted quarter note, and a half note that it can possibly choose from. And it tries to make 3 beats with those durations. So an eighth note is, 1/8. Quarter note is 1/4. I'm sorry. Quarter note is 1. 1/8 is 1/2. It goes like that with MIDI-Perl. So what I'm doing is hiding the details of MIDI-Perl, which you can do. You can download it and get busy with it, but it's like possibly going to give you a headache because there's so many details to it. I mean, it's all of MIDI, but it's like, here's the ocean. I hope you can swim. So what I've done is tried to automate some music theory that I learned at music school, which was to, divide things up into phrases, play the pentatonic scale on your bass so it doesn't conflict with, the horn player or whatever, like too badly. Maybe it's jazz and that's cool though. But, so anyway, okay. The second thing I want to say is that, this generates, phrases, which I call motifs. So there's 2 of them, right? So this is what I consider the coolest part. It's the module called Music Voice Gen, written by Jeremy Mates. And I know you're out there, Thrig, somewhere. But anyway, he wrote it, and it allows you to choose notes that are close to each other in a scale and move up and down the scale, as opposed to just grabbing them at random. It builds a phrase for you. So I thought that's perfect. And I've tried to make all kinds of bass module that, like, it recognizes what chord you're playing and then tries to play a bass line along with it, which is music. It's a music theory thing. And it's kind of, I don't know, I have to work on it some more. But anyway, you can see the 2 voices down at the bottom that I generate from this voice module, or voice generator module, based on the 2 motifs, 0 and 1. So I get voices, and that's what is played with this groove generator. We'll generate another groove here. And so I made this so I could play along with my guitar, just as practice, just as practice, because I was tired of my metronome just telling me what to do back and forth, So anyway, what time are we looking at, man? Jeez. It's 4:14. All right. Are there any questions at all? Yeah. What?
Okay, so basically, your Perl scripts or whatever, they produce MIDI files?
They do. My Perl scripts produce MIDI files. Yes.
Okay, so those MIDI files, like if I use Ableton song,
Mm-hmm.
I can import that as Ableton.
Yeah.
Any sounds.
Exactly. Right. I use Apple Logic. Okay. You use Ableton and import sound and change the sounds on your MIDI. You import the MIDI. And I do the same thing with Apple Logic. I import some MIDI and I'll put a better drum sound on it than the cheesy general MIDI sounds that I can get from a sound font. or whatever. So it's less complicated, but it's more musical and it sounds better. I have some tunes like that. Let me go back to my slides here. The last slide says, if you go to the slideshow, there's links. The slideshow is on GitHub. You can see my older, wordier talk and stuff. But there's a few things that I made, like Groove Tool, Rock Tool, Jazz Tool, that I made to practice and import what it generated into DAW, digital audio workstations. Yeah.
I've never even looked at what a MIDI-Perl looks like inside of it.
Right.
Does it look like compile code? When you open one up in a text editor, does it make any sense or no?
Can you open a MIDI file in a text editor and it doesn't make any sense? Well, I honestly have done that on accident. And I was like, this is the wrong program I'm using or whatever. But it's a binary thing. But I believe it's like a image where maybe the header shows you some information. I'm not honestly sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I've written a module that allows you to import a MIDI file and analyze it into the most common phrases. Like you import Bach, Jesu, Joy Man's Desiring, and you get a lot of triplet things. It's interesting. So, but yeah, you can, but I don't know if you can open it up and look at it and get anything out of it at least. So, what's up?
My point of reference for generated music is the SID chip on Commodore 64.
Oh yeah, Commodore 64. The SIM, what chip?
SID chip.
SID chip on Commodore 64. Yeah.
But I believe it's done by touching specific memory addresses and stuff.
Right.
And so I guess my question is totally naive. Can you do this kind of thing for music that you can play on Commodore 64?
Well, can you do the same thing for?
Would you be able to use or a similar approach?
Right. So I'm going to try to repeat your question for the benefit of the folks out there in the universe. But are you asking if you can import create MIDI files with this technique and import them into your Commodore?
I guess what I'm asking is, do you use this process or have you thought about it generating for using the SID chip for the Commodore?
Well, I used to have an Amiga and I eBayed it because I couldn't figure out how to use bars and pipes anymore. I used to use bars and pipes for MIDI back in the 80s. So,
the reason I'm asking is you had a slide where you were talking about voices.
Right.
Conceptually, it has, I think, 3 voices. And then you can program them to play simultaneously. That's where you get the.
Right. Yeah. Simultaneously, the Commodore was famous for its handshaking architecture. Well, Amigas were for sure. I'm not sure about the Commodores, but anyway. Yeah.
But I've heard of the fact that they can play more than one sound at once.
Advanced in that, yes. Yeah.
But the answer is basically no, because you can't play MIDI on a Commodore 64 because it only has a very limited number.
There you go.
Oh, okay, yeah. But that's being hardware too, so what I'm guessing is it puts you outputting from the Commodore to play on any device. You could probably generate Commodore 64 music, but it wouldn't be MIDI.
No, I don't care about. I care about MIDI. The target would be to apply this technique to targeting different kind of.
Sure. Yeah.
Source generation.
Targeting a different system. Yeah. Yeah. I've thought a lot about that, but I don't know a lot about it. So I am pretty naive when it comes to any way of that aspect.
Yeah, and that is working like that.
If you had a MIDI file that had no more voices than Commodore had, you could probably translate that MIDI into Commodore instruction.
Yeah, right.
No, but he wants to generate some shit.
What was your question?
Yeah.
Experimentation.
Generate music. Is that what you use it for? Or is that what you use it for? Maybe it's simple. It's actually
The talk itself. Are you asking? At first, I thought you were saying, what do I use MIDI stuff for in general? But
in your demo, you did a lot of random generating.
Yes.
Short phrases.
Right.
Is that what you do when you play around with it, or was that an example?
well, I've tried. Do I do short phrases, or was that just for the demo, or do I do like glorious larger masterpieces? Yeah, I do both. I make little bits and pieces to practice to and along with, and to satisfy curiosities like, how can I make a melody go along with crazy jazz changes or whatever. I've done a lot of that experimentation, but I have also tried to make longer pieces, especially slower ambient things that just last 20 minutes or whatever for a meditation session or for sleep even.
But the idea is not to have like a script or a list of notes for it to play.
Oh, I've also written notes to play as well. Like there's a number of examples in my modules, and I've got a bunch of them on CPAN that illustrate exactly how to just literally go down the line and play, like, for instance, the drum line to Back in Black, or the drum line to Frank Zappa's The Black Page. And that was tricky as hell because he does sevens inside of triplets and just to make it hard. But anyway, so is that an answer to your? I do both that and just for my own curiosity and importing it into. There's like on my last slide, there's like that tune Permutational. I use partly algorithmic stuff. I used to know exactly what, but anyway, I do use it in wider context as well. I'm not writing a symphony though. So I guess that's it. So thanks a lot for coming, you guys. Ask me any other questions.